Good evening and salutations, my Days of Our Lives fans. So, going into this episode, I was feeling three things. It was interesting at times, it was boring at times, and it seemed like it was also a rerun at times. And I'll get into the episode so I can really kind of tell you why. Start with Ciara and Ben. There's nothing talking about wedding stuff. I don't know, kind of boring to me. Pretty much Ciara's like, who you gonna invite? Are you gonna invite somebody and stuff like that? I want to sit there and do stuff like traditionally and just have a lot of people, whatever. And Ben is like, I don't really know a lot of people. I don't really know a lot of people. And Ciara's like, why don't you ask Will? And Ben pretty much is like, you mean the guy who I tried to kill when I was necktie killer? I can't get over that. I know I've heard worse, but the necktie killer, really? So anyway, Ciara's like, he probably, he's forgiven you and, just ask him and stuff. And Ben is like, what about Jake? Ciara just gives him that, really? I mean, to some extent, Ciara's pretty much just like, he's pretty much almost both gotten us killed. He's gotten you beat up by those guys a couple of times. Like, why do you want to have anything to do with this guy? And so they go back and forth and stuff like that about Ben and, Jake. Oh my goodness. Because he was like, why don't I invite Jake? And so Ben is like, Jake has been the only person that's given me a chance in this whole town as far as giving me a job ever since, I became, ever since I was a necktie killer and stuff like that. He's given me a chance. And, I just think that's the right thing to do, So they go back and forth a little bit, but eventually Ciara caves and she's like, all right, fine, whatever. They talk about more wedding stuff, and then Jake comes in. And Jake is like, listen, Gabby's been kidnapped. Here's the picture. And because Jake was at the garage earlier, and he got a text from the kidnappers that saying, hey, listen, we got what you want. Give us what we want. And Jake is like, listen, I'm probably running out of time. I need help. I can't find this girl by myself. So he goes over to Ben and Ciara's house. And once he shows him the photo of Gabby being kidnapped, Ciara goes to the phone and she's about to start calling the cops. And both Ben and Jake are like, hell no, put down that damn phone. And he pretty much say to her, listen, this is mob related. If if they get wind of it, they can kill Gabby. Ciara's all like, oh, well, what about Rafe? Rafe is her brother and he's the commissioner and stuff like that. And both of them just like, yo, it's just not a good idea. Plus, Rafe is actually at the custody hearing, so he's not going to be able to answer his phone or anything. So Ciara's like, all right, fine, whatever. And then they start trying to strategize, like, how do we find this woman or whatever. And this is the part where it just kind of took me out the scene a little bit. So you got Ciara. So when you got Ben talking to Jake about, strategizing about getting back Gabby and stuff like that, Ciara is all over his arm, like, just casual, just like she's at a photo shoot. And I'm just not there thinking, somebody's been kidnapped, and that's your demeanor, And then when Ciara starts talking, Ben is all like on top of her, like, doing this whole, like he is posing for a photo shoot, he half the times, whenever he's not there talking, whenever they're talking to somebody else, he always has this look like he just can't wait to start making out with her again. And granted, I don't blame him because she's pretty hot, but like, it just seems like it just happens a couple of times whenever they're together and they're talking to somebody else. He always just has that look like he's gonna start kissing on her. I'm like, what are y'all doing? This girl has been kidnapped and y'all just seem like it's just casual Tuesday or something. I don't know. It was all kind of weird to me. I haven't noticed that in GH, but this is a new show, so maybe I'm picking up more stuff and than I would maybe if I was watching GH news. So I don't know. I'm gonna look out for that. But I was just like, wow, this scene is looking a little kind of silly. But anyway, they strategize, and one of them, I forgot which one, asked, "Do you have a photo of her?" Jake does have the photo, and the photo shows of the girl that Claire's talking to. I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. Claire's not talking to this woman. I don't remember what her name is, by the way. I know they said it, but I forgot it. He's not there talking to this woman. No, she's Claire's not there talking to this woman, and they have a little chit chat or whatever. And then this woman, I guess, sees the photo that Claire has, and she's like, oh, and she takes it. She's like, what is this? What's going on? And he pretty much she asks like, what are you gonna do when you get out of here? Do you really think you're gonna be able to get out of here? And what are you gonna do when you found freedom? And Claire's like, I'm gonna try to make amends and just try to reconnect with my best friend again. And the girl's like, you mean the woman that you try to burn alive? You mean that best friend? And pretty much she's pretty cynical about it. She's like, listen, a lot of people sit there and say they're gonna change once they get out of here, and then they come right back here. What is gonna be so different? And they go back and forth and stuff like that. And honestly, to tell you the truth, it's just a lot of back and talk, sorry, I gotta have this because. But pretty much, it's a lot of back and forth talk. Now I'm thinking about this. I really should probably be eating and doing a review at the same time. But here we are, so this is what we're gonna do. They talk back and forth. Honestly, to tell you the truth, nothing really materialized from this conversation except for the fact that, I guess Claire makes a convincing argument about she's gonna change and she's gonna be a lot different, and she may even be invited to the wedding and stuff like that. Now, earlier, you have John and Marlene talking about Claire and about how she, Marlene's like, I don't know if I should let her out, How do I know she's not going to be the old Claire that's like, being vindictive and burning shit down? And, she talks about how she was kind of jealous of Sierra because, or she may be jealous of Sierra because Claire always had a thing for, having a man in her life to complete her. And if she doesn't have that love, that loved one, then she's not going to feel like she's whole. And if she sees Serena happy, who knows how that's going to affect her. And John, and she asked John's opinion on if I should sit there and get her released. And John's like, he's just pretty much optimistic, and maybe he's a little nostalgic because he's not there thinking about how Claire used to be. And not the current Claire that was doing a whole bunch of crazy stuff. But pretty much they both settle on the fact that she's ready. The doctor said that she's good and she can be released, and we'll just keep an eye on her because she needs a supervisor. So, and that pretty much ends their scene. It wasn't really a lot. And speaking of scenes that was kind of redundant to some extent, let's talk about Jack and Jennifer. And the reason why I sit there and say it's redundant is pretty simple. Jack and Jennifer talk about everything that's been happening to Steve and Kayla for the past 3 weeks, and probably stuff that was probably before my time, but it was stuff that even I remember. And excuse me. Pretty much what wound up happening was Jennifer was like, alright, so I should sit there and tell her here's the thing that kind of annoyed me a little bit. So they talk about how, Steve was at the bar drinking, and, Jennifer was talking about how she was marrying Justin without knowing all the facts and everything like that. And they rehash everything, and I was like, okay, fine, whatever, this is a little boring. I kind of already know this stuff. And then Jack does a fucking 180, and I was like, I'm sorry, what? So yesterday's episode, Jack was championing Steve to like fight for Kayla, and tell her to. 1 second. Yesterday Jack was sitting there telling Steve to fight for Kayla, and she's your one true love, and she doesn't have all the information, and you need to fight for her, and not be a coward. Pretty much everything that he said was the stuff that Hope was saying. And today he does a 180, and he's like, oh, well, Jack, Steve realized that, he missed his window and his opportunity to be with Kayla, and Kayla's happy, and, because at one point, Jennifer was going to just dart off and be like, listen, if Steve is not going to tell her how he feels, then I will. And that's when Jack was like, no, don't do that, because, and I was like, I'm sorry, what? What? Wasn't you that same guy that was all, what happened to that guy? Who are you, and what happened to that guy? And I kind of get it to some extent, because at the end, Steve was like, listen, I'm doing what's best for her because I love her. And that's when Jack was like, okay, fine, whatever. But I felt like he gave me two different energies. One minute he's championing for Steve to go after Kayla, and the next minute he's sitting there telling Jennifer to not tell Kayla how Steve feels because it's gonna ruin her happiness. So I'm like, what? And here's the thing. Yeah, so I just thought that was a little weird. And let's talk about Steve and Kayla. And I'm gonna quickly talk about a scene that took me out of the damn scene. So Steve is at the bar drinking or whatever, and he just had some sort of sixth sense to turn around, and he sees Kayla just standing there looking all disapproved and of what he's doing. And so Kayla walks up to Steve, and Steve is like, all right, I want to celebrate. You want to celebrate with me? Let me get you a drink. And Kayla's like, I think you have one too many. That judgmental kind of, you've been drinking too much kind of thing. I mean, to be fair, he was pretty hammered, and it was daytime, so I get where she's coming from. But she's like, the thing that kind of threw me off the scene is when Steve was like, I gotta tell you something or whatever, and he does it in this very drunken state of not actually saying what he's gonna say. And Kayla's like, what's going on? You've been drinking a lot, and I can't drink. Her facial expressions never change. I swear, you can sit there and tell her that our house is on fire, and she'll be like, oh, okay, really? And I'll stand there and just look at her like, your house is on fire. Why do you just have that one facial expression? I don't get that. I don't know. It really took me out of the scene because, she doesn't really, she's concerned for Steve and his health and the fact that he's drinking too much or whatever, and she's worried about him. But her facial expression just looked like she's like, yeah, you're really drunk. Man, I'm going to actually have to take you out of here. And I'm just like, way to go. You read that line perfectly. You know what? They don't even have to sit there and do a retake on it. It's perfect. And at one point, Steve, falls right into Kayla's arms. And so I'm thinking at this point, when Kayla gets Steve back to his place, and by the way, can somebody please tell me the relationship between Steve and Hope? Because I don't know, are they actually blood related? Are they friends? What are they? Did they used to be more? I'm confused. So Kayla gets Steve back to his house, and Steve is like, I gotta tell you something. I'm sitting there thinking, okay, cool. You're gonna get interrupted, and we're gonna have to sit there and wait for 2 weeks before you decide to tell her the truth. Okay, fine. Let's see how this is gonna play out. And then he tells her, I'm still in love with you, and I put you away, but I made a mistake, and I was wrong. And I was like, whoa. Are you telling me that, he's actually telling her? This is Friday, and this is actually happening? He's going to tell her how she feels? And really? And he starts telling her how he feels. And she's like, listen, I'm only marrying Justin because I couldn't be with you and stuff like that. And this is before I knew everything, and now this totally changes everything. And I was like, whoa. This is a little bit too good to be true. You're fucking with me, right? You're not serious, right? It was a goddamn dream. It was a dream. And when I felt that it was a dream, I just paused it. I got up and I was like, I can't. And I had to walk outside and get some air because I was like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. And after 5 minutes of me just kind of just breathing, I came back in there. Was like, all right, let's finish this up. And so, yeah, he wakes up and Hope is there, and he's sitting there saying that he had a drunk dream. I didn't know that drunken dreams was a thing, but okay, sure. And he's like, listen, I guess it was probably for the best because I know I said this over and over again, but I can't really sit there and be with her. I'm making the right choice. And I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. I'm still pissed about the fact that it was all a dream, but okay. Anyway, Kayla comes to Jack and Jennifer's house, and they start acting weird because, Jack is all like, don't tell her, don't upheave her life. She's happy. Steve feel like he's doing the right thing. Don't F that up. And then Kayla just comes on in, doesn't knock or anything. Apparently, no one knocks in this damn town. Really, no one knocks at this town. Everyone just walks on in. Anyway, so Kayla comes in, and Jack and Jennifer are just acting weird. I mean, really weird. Like, to the point where they send Kayla upstairs to eat some, to give the cookies to because she came in with some cookies, and we're like, what? Listen, Serena, no, I actually forgot the damn names. Charlotte, and Thomas, will really like those cookies. So why don't you go up there and give it to them, and I'll get some wine, and we'll just have a good time. So she does that, and Jack just really hammers in. Listen, do not do this. This isn't our place. He made his choice, and that's the end of that. And for the rest of the time, they just kind of talk and skip over because, Kayla's like, Kayla's like, I saw Steve today. He was really drunk at the bar, and he was sad. And I think they made up some sort of cover story about how he's still probably broken up from something that happened before I started watching the show. That's pretty much all I can sit there and say. Something bad happened, and he was upset with it. And Jack was like, "Yep, that's exactly what it is. Yep, that's what it is. He's really broken up about that." And then he just sits there and looks at Jennifer like, "Shut the up." And that pretty much ends that scene. Yeah, that was pretty much about it. The only thing that I know for sure, because, Claire was sitting there talking to this, I guess, woman that I can't remember her name, talking about what she's going to do when she gets out. Apparently, she's the woman that, the woman that Claire was talking to was the same woman that Jake is looking for. It's now they're on a hunt to sit there and try to find her, because Jake was like, listen, I tracked her here. I don't think that she went anywhere else except for here. So she's still in this town somewhere. And so, yeah, apparently she's in Belle Reeves. And that's going to pretty much kind of do it for this review of Days of Our Lives. It's funny because I actually this is my second take. And the only reason why I kind of just, the only reason why I pretty much erased it was because I just kept fucking up on names. So I kept messing up on Ben and Jake's name and just getting them just swapped. I literally, it got to a point where it's like when I was talking and then I replayed it, I was like, I don't understand any of this. And if I don't understand this, I doubt anyone else is going to understand this. So I don't like to just turn out just a video just for the sake of just turning anything out. So yeah. But yeah, also thank you everyone who has been correcting me at the bottom in the comment section. Because I'm still learning the soap opera and learning names and history and stuff like that. So I really do appreciate the comments at the bottom, just catching me up on different stuff and correcting names and relationships with people, because it makes it a lot easier going into when I'm watching this, just myself, not even just reviewing it, but just myself as a person who's starting to become a fan of the show, to really kind of grasp some of the stuff that's going on and the relationships and the motives and stuff like that of why people don't like each other and stuff like that. So thank you everyone who has been writing comments at the bottom. I really do appreciate it. Be safe with, at this point, everything, and I will catch you in the next video.